punish them by being a little late. So I just wanted to welcome everyone. This is Janice Robinson, and I believe I know everyone who's on the call, so I really thank you all for joining in with us today, and I really do appreciate you being here. And I wanted us to go on and get started. I'm really excited about this new partnership that I have with Robin Stacia, and you're going to meet Robin in just a second. But Robin is going to bring to you and really help us in taking your board service and helping your organizations build better boards to a new level. And she's going to do so by doing a series that's the Standards of Excellence. And what it is embracing best practices in nonprofit board governance. And I'm excited for her to do this. I think it's going to be a really great opportunity for nonprofits and especially board members to really do some learning and some growing and developing of their organizations. And just to tell you a few things about Robin, and then I'll turn it over to her. Robin is the principal of Sage Consulting Network. She is not only a senior governance consultant with BoardSource, but she's also a consultant with the Centers for Excellence, and she's one of their consultants that goes out and does the training. She's also a clinical psychologist, and so maybe she can help us with some of the areas that we're dealing with on our boards that might need a deeper look. But she's also a green belt in Lean Six Sigma. So Robin has had a vast career in working with nonprofits. I met her here in Atlanta, but then also had the opportunity to sit in one of her trainings at a BoardSource conference, and she does a phenomenal job. And I think you'll really appreciate her. She's very personable and is willing to aid and assist in any way that she can. So welcome, Robin Stacia.
All right, thank you so much, Janice, and thanks everyone for joining the call. I appreciate it. As Janice said, this session today is an overview for you of what the full training program is going to focus on. We hope that you're going to get excited about it, and either you or members of your board will participate in the training session. We've entitled this Embracing Best Practices because it really is about wanting to intentionally bring our best to the organizations that we serve. So that's what we're going to do over this journey of the 3 webinars. So I'm clicking go, and it's there it is. Okay. So Janice introduced me, but there is a slide that tells you just a little bit about me. And you know, I'm really fortunate to work with some amazing organizations. In fact, I'm also working with the United Ways Board with Milton Little. The Southeastern Council on Foundation is one of my clients, the Community Foundation for Greater Atlanta. This is my 2nd year working with a cohort of nonprofits with them doing succession planning, leading a 4-part training series, and then organizational coaching on succession planning. So the Atlanta Humane Society, Premier Academy, and then many organizations outside of Atlanta, Spartanburg County Foundation. So I've been very fortunate to work with many organizations all around board leadership, board governance, organizational excellence, strengthening the work that we do on behalf of the mission. So hopefully I'll have an opportunity to work with each of you. So today, between now and I'm hoping 6 o'clock, I'm going to try to get this out as early as we can. I want to go over a little bit about the Standards for Excellence because you may not have heard of it. Although I'll tell you, the webinars are not just going to be Standards for Excellence because I like to bring to bear what I call a compounded effect, just as you want to do with your investments, and that everything I have, I want to share with you. So you will get information that is from BoardSource, and I'm a senior governance consultant with BoardSource, and we have a huge amount of just amazing research and governance information that we leverage with our member organizations, and that as a consultant I'm able to use in the work that I do. Also, you know, I'm just a best practice governance kind of a geek, and so I read tons of things, and I've got some amazing materials that I like to share that I think really help organizations understand not just the theory but the how-to, and that's what this is about, is how understanding what we should do and then getting some strategies and tools on how we do them. So we're going to go through what we're going to cover in each of the webinars, the face-to-face, and then there'll be some time at the end for any questions and answers. Okay, hopefully I'll have the answers. So the Standards for Excellence is a national program. It really is a program that's about establishing the highest standards in ethics and accountability in nonprofit governance, management, and operations. So it isn't just about the board. We're going to focus on the board in these webinars, but we know that the board work is about strengthening management and strengthening operations. So the board has their eye on the entire organization. This was started back in 1998 in Maryland through the Maryland Association of Nonprofits, and I happen to know about it because I was the previous director of consulting and training at Maryland Nonprofits in the early 2000s. And this was around the time when, I don't know if many of y'all remember, where there were a lot of national nonprofit breaches in ethics. And the Sarbanes-Oxley came about, and there was just huge congressional investigations. And with the Maryland Association for Nonprofits being close to D.C., organizations that are close are often tapped by their congressmen to really take a look at how we can improve. And so that's where the Standards for Excellence started. It was through a need to establish a system of accountability throughout our sector, so that those who give to us and those who believe in us have some way of knowing that we have a higher level of excellence that we are working towards. And so I'm not going to go through the whole journey, but when you get the slides, you'll be able to see the journey. What's important is that it has expanded across the country. There are licensed consultants such as myself who help to teach the standards. There are organizations called replication partners who actually lead the effort in accrediting organizations. So the piece we're going to not focus on so much, but I want you to hear, is that this is a process where you can receive an accreditation. So a nonprofit who goes through the standards accreditation process receives a seal, and that seal states that your nonprofit meets the standards of excellence. And we have seen nonprofits who do that really excel in their fundraising and in their stakeholder relationships. There are some grantors who even give additional credit for that in those states where they have replication partners. So the standards, there's a code, there's resource and training, there's that volunteer accreditation that I mentioned, educating the public. So there's a lot of components to it. Is someone trying to ask me a question? I'm hearing some feedback, so I don't know if you are or not. Okay, how I usually do things, and I'll mention this because I forgot, I will pause after so many slides and give you a chance to ask a question. Also, on your GoToMeeting, there's a chat box, and you can write your question in that chat box, and I will see it if you don't want to ask your question verbally. So either way, but I will definitely pause after each section and give you a chance to ask me questions. So I don't know why I'm having a little stubborn time. So this just shows where the penetration of the standards is at this point in the states that are dark, or states that have either licensed consultants or replication partners. So it's growing. And these are some of those replication partners. Most of them are, you know, your nonprofit state organizations. A couple of community foundations are replication partners. Janice just asked me prior to the call if Georgia Center had was one, and they were one in the past, and they relinquished their partnership not because they didn't believe in the standards, but because they decided that they wanted to go in a different direction with their resources. So they are not a replication partner, but they definitely are aware of it and are active supporters of the standards. So the code is a code of 6 guiding principles, and it has 27 topic areas. We're not in these webinars going to be able to cover all the topic areas, but you can see them there. And we're going to go into at least a cursory level most of them, but I'm going to deep dive into those areas where, as VIP alumni, you have been on boards, and we're talking about taking your board service to another level, okay? So you can see some of the areas that are covered. So webinar 1. So first, before I do that, are there any questions about the standards for excellence? Okay, great. Webinar 1. Before everyone starts this process, those who register, you're going to do a mini assessment first. The Standards for Excellence has a huge accreditation pre-assessment. We're not going to do that big thing that we do, but it looks at all aspects of your organization because we want to know pre and post, right, how you're doing. But since this is a webinar and it's not really an implementation strategy, which is a part of the work that we do, I'm going to devise a pre and post test that will be more meaningful for the kind of work we are doing. But Janice and I are interested, and hopefully you will be interested in knowing how you do things or understand your role in governance prior to the webinars, how that might be different after we do the 3 webinars in our face-to-face. So you're going to do a mini assessment before we start, and then you'll do the same assessment at the end. So in the first webinar, which is all of them are 90 minutes, we're going to cover the big areas of leadership. And in leadership, we're going to cover governance and mission strategy and evaluation. So, you know, governance for me is the foundation. Without strong governance practices, without fidelity to governance practices and adherence in being an organization, a board organization that is intentionally engaged in how you do your work, the organization is not going to achieve the outcomes that it can. There are many studies that show the direct relationship between a strong board of directors and an organization that excels. And so we're going to look at all of these things under the governance column. Some of the ones that I find I'm asked the most questions about is board effectiveness and engagement. How do we achieve that? How do I get my board members engaged? How do we know we're working on the right things? How can we determine that we're effective? Board revitalization process. As I said, I'm working with cohorts with a couple of organizations, the Community Foundation being one, and boards who aren't adhering to best practices like term limits and terms, who don't have a rich process for board identification of board members and cultivating new board members, who don't use board composition matrix, who don't focus on diversity and inclusion. So we're going to talk about all of those things under governance. And under mission and strategy, the key things there is really going to be about the board leading as being the strategic thinkers of the organization and strategic planning. But it's not just about planning, but it's how you think in an ongoing way to be strategic and what we call generative. Generative meaning that you're not coming to the meetings and doing what I call being a bobblehead board member, where we just kind of nod our heads because the executive is just talking the whole time and the board really doesn't have its own role and agenda. So we're going to talk about how the board leads in mission and in strategy, and then how we evaluate. The board's other role is oversight, and how we evaluate our programs and our work for effectiveness. The next area we're going to cover is fiduciary oversight, and I tell you, for BoardSource, we have these certificates in nonprofit, nonprofit, what is it called? Certificate Nonprofit Board something. There's an E there. And I'm one of the faculty for that. And I do 2 webinars for BoardSource, and one is on fiduciary oversight. And I do this for a lot of clients. And I tell you, it's the bucket list, okay? This is the area where all things fall. So fiduciary is about everything that we're responsible for. Our staff for our fiduciary responsibilities, our buildings and grounds, the investments in our programs and services, our internal controls, ensuring that we have adequate resources, understanding where the money comes and where the money goes, ensuring that we have active resource development strategies, that the board is involved in fundraising, and then all of those compliances that we're responsible for in terms of, our legal compliances, our conflicts of interest, our ethics codes. Does your board have a process for ensuring that there's a firewall between self-dealing and self-interest and how you make decisions? So all of these things are about finance and operations, and we're going to cover this in the first webinar in a very meaningful way to help you really understand what excellence looks like in these practices. And then we're going to focus on public awareness, engagement, and advocacy. And the board member has a role both in the boardroom and outside of the boardroom. And so we're going to talk about the board member as ambassador, the board member as volunteer, really how we are called to be positioned at all times to educate and advocate on behalf of our organization, and really what advocacy is about. Many nonprofits are confused about what they're allowed to do when it comes to advocacy. BoardSource, we have a real focus on ensuring that advocacy occurs, and depending upon what kind of 501c you are, you have various advocacy limitations and allowances. And so it's important to know what you can do and how you do it, because that's what really strengthens your overall mission within the broader context of the community. So we're going to cover that as well. So for webinar 1, we are laying the basics of excellence, and we're going to go deeper into a few of the critical areas. So I'm going to pause there and see if there are any questions on the kinds of things that we'll cover in webinar 1. Hopefully, as you listen to those areas, some of them will resonate with you as things maybe you're already working on, areas where you feel your board has a strength but can go certainly higher in its performance, or areas where your board has a weakness and needs to intentionally apply some strategic efforts to improving how you do your work. Okay? So if there are no questions, all right, we'll go to webinar 2. Webinar 2 is focusing on best practices and competencies for high-performing boards. And in this one, we're going to focus on really deep diving into 3 bodies of data. So, best practices come from data, comes from studies that our sector is fortunate enough to have completed that give us information about how, as board members, we should be doing our jobs. And these are jobs, they're just volunteer jobs. And so the independent sector last year came out with an amazing study of principles of good governance and ethical practices that very much aligns with the standards. And they have 33 principles, if you can believe that they believe align with good governance and ethical practices. The Stanford Business in 2015 did a survey of nonprofit boards and organizations. We're going to take a look at that and how that aligns with the standards. And they came up with 9 recommendations of what nonprofit organizations and boards should do. And then leading with intent is the BoardSource product. Every other year, BoardSource does a survey, which is a very unique survey of the nonprofit sector. First, we survey nonprofit executive directors or CEOs. Then those that complete the survey, we identify who their board chairs are, and then we survey only those board chairs. so that the data is a complete correlation between an executive and a board chair. And from that, we're able to draw some conclusions about where strengths are in nonprofit board operations and where challenges are. And so we just finished the data for the most recent one, which isn't published yet. So we'll be looking at the 2015 Leading with Intent data. From that, we're going to really focus on intentional board practices, and there are quite a few that I'm going to share with you. We're going to look at the 9 steps for strengthening and revitalizing boards. And, you know, I harp on that over and over because it's who you have around the board table that makes a difference. And so we have to be much more intentional about our board selection process, our board orientation. Those 9 steps take you through everything that you should be doing. We're going to focus on strategies for diversity and inclusion, and that's important. It's one of the biggest questions that I'm asked. That's actually the conference, the seminar that Janice saw me present at BoardSource, and I focus on this with all of the organizations, but in a specialty way with many organizations at conferences. How do we really have a diverse board? And it's not just about racial diversity. There are a variety of diversity and inclusion areas that we should focus on. And then, you know, there'll be other things that I'll throw into the pot, but these are the most important best practice strategies based on data that we're going to take a look at in webinar 2. So are there any questions on webinar 2? I'm interested in knowing, are you guys, has anyone heard of the Good Principles? Have you seen the Good Principles study from the independent sector or the Stanford Business Review study or Leading with Intent? So by the silence, I'll assume that that means no, that you haven't seen those documents. So these will be really great, fresh opportunities for you to explore. One of the things that we're doing with this program, that I do with all my programs, is I set up a Dropbox, and in that Dropbox, you will get reading assignments, and then you'll get references. So I like to download and share a lot of things that I have that are great resources for you. So you'll have a folder where you'll get all of these documents for reading. You won't have to go hunt around and look for them. They'll be right there in the Dropbox for you. And then you'll also have a folder that are going to be references. And these are things that don't directly relate to what I'm going to talk about in the webinar, but I would call them one generation removed, meaning that if you read them, you're going to be only stronger in anything that you try to implement. And if you read them, you're going to be more knowledgeable about governance and more knowledgeable about the sector. So you'll have those 2 folders. And then I generally like to add a folder where if folks want to share things, they can share things, because I'm not the only purveyor of governance material. You guys are also. And so we'll have a short folder where we'll share. You can ask me questions through the folder. There'll be, you can upload documents that you want to share with the entire group. So we'll have a sharing folder. There's not going to be homework assignments to this task because we're doing this fairly, you know, rapidly. We'll do our work, our hands-on work at the final meeting. So your homework assignments are the reading. You won't have to submit anything to me for this first version. You don't come in on this one, I can't promise you that the next iteration won't have homework assignments, because that's how I usually do things, but we won't for this one. And then the third webinar, which is going to be in April, is going to focus on excellence in board leadership. So, you know, excellence in board leadership is just really a personal journey. So you can, you know all the best practices, and you can know all of your roles and responsibilities, but it's really about the individual board member and the collective board member, the collective board, practicing in an intentional way. And so we're going to talk about practices. We're going to talk about essential practices, meaning these are the things that are just the basics. I'm going to show you a slide that I love that talks about dysfunctional boards, functional boards, you know, I can't remember all the labels, but a good board, all the way up to an excellent board. And so sometimes we feel we're good, but we're really only doing what's essential. We're not leading. And then we're going to talk about leading practices, because I want you to know the difference between doing what's essential and what's truly leading. And then we're going to talk about compliance practices. And these are the practices that if you don't do are going to get you in trouble. And, you know, myself and Board Source, we've been subject matter experts for boards who've been sued. And I always like to tell my scary stories because they're for real. And these things really do happen. And we want to talk about accountability, because accountability is often that missing piece where we're not holding ourselves accountable to the work that we should be doing and to the quality of the work that we should do. That it's not about going through the motions, but it's about producing real excellence for our organizations. And we'll share this in both from the individual and the collective board responsibilities. So that's the third webinar. Okay. And then the final, which I'm excited about, because I always like, I mean, I love webinars because they're convenient, they're effective, they're cost effective, but, you know, it's nice to get to see each other and to really solidify these relationships. And so we're doing that in a face-to-face on the 24th at the Loudermilk. And that meeting, we're going to bring it all home. So we're going to focus on everything we've talked about. This is what I call my placemat. This is my favorite slide probably right now of any slide I use, is this one, because it really puts the work we do into the buckets of how we need to pay attention to them. So we're going to focus on the people, or the who, the what the board does, and the leadership and board dynamics it takes to get the work done. You're going to go through a journey of your own intentional reflection on why you're here, you know, what you and your board's impact on your organization. This all leads to an action plan. We want to figure out the road ahead for governance changes that both you and your board will make. And I understand that you may not be there in a position where you are the board chair or where you can come back and implement changes, but our hope is that you will, this will be a teach one, reach one kind of thing, where you will come into this having shared the things you've learned or the highlights of what you've learned with your board, and have some sense of where your board governance changes and your personal changes need to be, because we're going to want you to leave with a development tool. It'll be much more of a personal development tool, but certainly as a component of that, you will be able to identify some areas where your board can also strengthen its work, and hopefully your board is going to be receptive to your recommendations about things that they should dive deeper into and explore more of. So we will leave that face-to-face with this board development tool. So that's the face-to-face. We're going to also have some fun, you know, get to know each other a little bit. And, you know, really it's all about improvement. And what we've seen when organizations implement standards, they improve. So this particular chart is just one I pulled out to show you that, you know, that those who participated in the standards before their application, where their funding levels were, and, you know, the percentage of increase. And that's just one outcome measurement. You know, we find satisfaction improves. We find the ability to recruit board members at a level of individuals who have the ability to serve and contribute improve. So all types of metrics improve when you have an intentional process of implementing a standard of excellence, best practices to your governance and to your practice. So the ask for you is going to be 3 webinars, or anyone who participates, attending a closing meeting at the Loudermilk, completing the reading assignments, which I promise you will not be extreme, and that they'll be interesting. So, and being open to learning, being very intentional about identifying how you can strengthen your board performance and generously sharing this information with your board so that together you can identify maybe some board goals. So that's the ask. We think it's going to be a wonderful journey. Also, the code, the Standard for Excellence code, is a free download from your app. So you can even have the app right on your phone. No matter what kind of phone you have, it's a free download. And so I invite you to do that as well. And now, hopefully, we do have some questions or some discussion from those of you about the webinars, the process, or just any questions that you have. So does this sound, are you on the call because you're interested in this? Is it something that you feel would be helpful for you or for members of your board? Janice knows who you guys are, and unfortunately I don't. So I don't know if you're board members, or if you're executives, if you're board chairs. So maybe we can just spend a couple of minutes with just me hearing a little bit from each of you so that I can get an idea of what you're thinking when you decided to get on the call today, and if this is something that you know, you're looking at for yourself or for others. So we'll start with Stephen.
Hi, Robin. So I guess my question is around the certification aspect. Is this targeted at certification of individuals or certification of the board as a whole?
So this certification, well, we're not targeting that in this training, but if someone were to be interested in the certification, it's for the organization. So it's not for the board, because there's an organizational piece to this as well, which we're not going to focus on in the webinar. But the full Standards for Excellence program focuses on board governance, management, and organization. And so the organization receives the seal, which is like the board receiving the seal, because the board has a huge contribution to that and responsibility, but it's an organizational seal. Any other questions, Stephen? Are you a board member?
Yes.
Okay, okay, great. All right, well, thank you for getting on the call. And what about Stephanie?
Good afternoon, Robin. How are you?
Hi, Stephanie. I'm great.
I am a board member, and our board is pretty new, so we, are trying to make sure that we are set up properly in compliance. We want to be a good board, so
this will be perfect.
That's what I was about to say. So just in listening to you, this definitely sounds like the path that we may want to travel. I do have a question for you, because I missed one of the webinar dates. I've got April the 19th, and I got the face-to-face on the 24th of May.
Okay, the other dates are and I have to go back because I actually don't have them written down. So it's the 24th, and then we've got the 19th, and then it's March 29th.
All right.
And then it's February 22nd, I believe. Yeah, February 22nd.
Oh, my goodness. Okay, let's see here. And all of those are from 5:30 to 7:30, right?
5:30 to 7.
Okay. And February 22nd. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, we picked that time because most of the participants, of course, are volunteer and board members work during the day. And so, if you just hang back in your office a little bit and do the webinar or get home a little early, we were hoping that would be
And that's what I was planning to do today. I was planning to do it at the office. That way I could have peace and quiet. But I wound up having to leave earlier. So I managed to get home in time enough, so that was definitely a plus.
Wonderful.
I know that I'll be able to make all of the webinars. This February 22nd one is questionable. I may have to get in contact with one of the other board members, because I'm sitting and taking the Georgia Bar exam, and that exam is on February 21st and 22nd.
Okay.
So,
and each one of them will be recorded. This recording is going to be open to the public. The next recordings will only be sent out to those who are registered. So you'll be able to look at it later.
Oh, that
I'll
would be
just send you the
beautiful.
link. Yeah.
That would be beautiful. You all keep me in prayer on this exam.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You stay on point with your exam. You'll be able to see all of the PowerPoint presentations and hear all of the dialogue through the recording. So it'll be just like being there. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
That's great.
So let me ask you this, because when you're welcome. Let me ask you this real quick, because when I logged in, I did put my email address in there so you all will send out the recordings because we registered, right?
So for this recording, because this was a free webinar and we wanted to have wide access, Janice is going to send the link out to widely, so you'll get it again. But the recordings, once the program starts, for those who register, you guys will be the only ones who'll get the actual webinar recordings.
Okay,
and of course you can share it with your board members. Your board members can watch it with you, but we're not going to send it out widely because, of course, there's a fee for it.
Of course. And will you all send out the information for registering for those other workshops?
Yeah, I think that was on that original page that you got. And Janice can redirect you to that. But yeah, that's on that original page. I think there's another link somewhere there where you can register. Yeah.
Okay. All right. That'll be perfect. Thank you so much.
All right. Great. Great. And then I have a S. Hi, go ahead.
Oh, no, this is Janice. I don't know if my sound stopped on my laptop, so I'm calling in from my phone. So I don't know if there was a question that I missed.
Yeah. Stephanie was just asking about the registration process, and I was telling her that I believe it was on that original email you sent that they could register there, but you can answer that.
Okay. I believe it was, Stephanie, but if not, if you have my email address, it's jrobinson@unitedwayatlanta.org. You can email me, and I can, and I'll send it out to you.
J. Robinson?
J. Robinson at unitedwayatlanta.org.
Atlanta.org. Okay.
And these are great questions.
And if I don't have the information, I'll just email you and ask you to send it out to me.
No problem. Okay.
Thank you so much. You ladies have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, Stephanie. And these are great questions because others will be listening to this, and I'm sure these will be questions that they have. So I'm going to go to, I've got S. Harris, and I don't know your first name. Sorry. It's showing up as S. Harris.
I don't have a question, but I am a board member, and I am on the call just to get more information for our board governance committee, which I do not sit on, but wanted to see if this information may be something that I can present with them or to them to see if they may find it helpful. So I do not think that they would be necessarily available for the dates of the upcoming webinars, but maybe for some future series. But I would need to present what I've learned and heard today on this call to them.
Okay. Okay. So, so the registration is for an individual. Okay. So I would just ask that you share it with them, and I'm sure, I don't know how many people on your governance committee, it's possible that one of those individuals would be able to make these dates. Others on the governance committee can listen in along with him or her who registered, but only one person is registered. And then, I mean, you can register more than one if you guys want to, you know, certainly pay the individual cost, but we're just saying it's not an organization registration because only one person can come to the face-to-face. So we've got a capacity at the face-to-face of 50. So the person who's registered is actually the person that comes to the face-to-face. But hopefully out of your governance committee, there's going to be someone who might be able to participate and that these dates are going to work for him or her.
Okay.
And if not, then, you know, someone else can dial in during that time. Yeah.
Okay.
But as I said, I'm recording it also, so they'll be able to get it.
Okay.
Okay, great. All right. And what's your first name? I just have Harris. What's your?
Sharon.
Hi, Sharon. Okay. Thank you so much.
Hey, Sharon.
Then we've got Denise. We have Denise Jones. Are you still there, Denise? Yeah, maybe Denise stepped away. Okay. All right. Did I connect with everyone? Okay, it looks like I did. So Denise is asking me a question about the PowerPoint. The PowerPoint will not be sent out, only the recording. So you'll be able to get the link to the recording, and then they will be able to review the recording, which has the PowerPoint in it, but we're not sending the PowerPoint out. So those who participate will get versions of these slides. Yeah, but we believe that the best way to understand what it's going to be about is by listening to the overview. So we want folks to the link to the presentation is going to be sent out widely. They'll be able to listen to it at their free time. Well, it looks like we did that in 45 minutes. If no one else has any other questions, we hope that, I'm going to just fast forward to the end, that everything was clear, that you all understand what we're going to try to achieve with you, that it's, I know it's going to be an excellent experience. We'll have a lot of fun together. You'll learn. Your organization definitely is going to be able to go to another level. So, Janice, do you have any closing comments that you want to make?
No, if you have any other questions, I did share my email, so just feel free to give me a call. If you want to register and encounter any problems, also just feel free to connect with me. And we just hope that you all participate and invite others to do so, because I think this will be a fantastic experience.
Okay.
Thank you for
All right, very good. Thank you, everybody, so much for getting on, and have a great evening. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you, Robin.
All right, great. Bye-bye.
Good night.